and thank you for joining us. My name is Judith Reinhardt of the J. Reinhardt Gallery here in Seattle, Washington. I am thrilled to be presenting this series of Artists in Conversation. Tonight's program are two fantastic artists, Maggie Jiang and Jazz Brown. They're going to be discussing their influences, their process, and the philosophy behind their geometric abstract paintings.
My name is Jazz Brown. My work is primarily known as geometric abstraction. I like to consider it more cosmic decomposition, which means that I take all these forms that are naturally connected and I deconstruct them.
I'm Maggie Jiang. I'm a painter. I live in Seattle. I would say it's my work is like a spontaneous person wearing an analytical coat. And I would equate the act of painting, at least to me personally, as singing, dancing, and playing chess all at the same time. You know, when you do all three things at the same time, there's a rhythm that goes with it, and there's bodily movement, there's mathematical calculations, and there's you making one move with a cascading effect to all your future moves, and all of that. So I guess my ambition is to have my work communicate those elements. And not only the joy of making them, but also the vulnerability of, you know, when you do the impossible, get them together, the risk of failing is at any moment. So I want that vulnerability to come through as well.
My influences are pretty much anything I see. There's colors, you know, all around. There's flowers. There's beautiful architecture. I use the tones from the flowers and the structures from the architecture and just kind of merge them into one.
In terms of art movements, I would say the Bauhaus movement, concrete art movement, the West Coast hard edge painting movement, and color field paintings.
I love Maggie's work. We had a discussion earlier, and we discussed how I actually used to paint hard-edged, and just I guess the texture doesn't show online as well as you know, the work I'm doing now. So I kind of changed it a bit.
I consider jazz work tactile, meditative, and curious. So I want to know more. I've done a little research on your profile. You are someone that's self-taught, didn't go to art school, and we share that in common as well. So as someone who didn't go to art school, who didn't have a traditional quote-unquote art education, do you consider yourself an insider or an outsider in the Seattle arts community?
This may sound cliche, but I'm going to say neither.
Okay,
yeah,
great. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, yeah. Again, you know, the work is primarily based, you know, in expressing the oneness of all things. I feel like when we put labels on things, we kind of, you know, create separation in a sense. You have all these tropes and cliches like the starving artist. And, you know, it's almost like you have to start off as a starving artist and then you make it big. If I never started off as a starving artist, then I never starved. So inside, outside, there's an superiority and I guess inferior kind of thing going on there. And I think the insiders feel like, you know, they rule the world in a sense. The outsiders kind of are on the outside looking in, trying to make their way into it. I feel like I'm already here, so yeah, there's no in or out. I'm already where I want to be. I have questions about your tones. I really love how, you know, purple is my favorite color. First off, let me say that. Yes.
Me too.
In the art world, purple is kind of taboo in a sense.
Yes.
How do you negotiate that that ignorance?
I don't think about it. I love purple, and if I had my way, our house will be purple. So I suppose for that I have to negotiate with my husband a little bit.
Right.
So I guess it's to that is the color choices. For me, my color strategy is I would intentionally, at times, remove my favorite pigments off the palette to sort of, make it difficult for me.
Right.
And other times I would insist I put in something that I cringe, I hate, like a phthalo anything. But I'm going to make myself work with it. It's more of sort of a challenging my norm. I mean, as much as I love purple, I feel like I'm not challenging myself if all I do is always purple. In terms of, if that is an art world taboo, that's of a lesser importance to me.
Bravo.
I'm curious, do you have a favorite geometric form / shape of all time? Is that circle?
I think the circle. For me, I think the circle is cool in many ways. I think the coolest way is it's a zero, and it's again, if love or the peace or the void had a logo, it would be zero. Zero is the expression of nothing. Nothing, not in the sense that it is lack, but just untainted, conditional what is, So that shape and that number has always, just kind of, stuck out, we always see, like, I guess we think about like a bank account, if I have $0.00 in my bank account, there's almost a deficit, but there's not a deficit, it's not in the negatives. So, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
And void is definitely not nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Emptiness isn't emptiness.
Right. I mean, that's actually a very important philosophy in Eastern art, in the traditions of, like Chinese painting.
Sure.
And, I studied a little bit when I was a kid. I wish I paid more attention then.
Right.
But it's void being a critical part of the composition. And you almost sort of paint around it so the void becomes the star. So I think the Western philosophy, sometimes we just want more and more and more stuff and then stuff it all in. So having the concept void in the work is very refreshing.
Thank you.
I applaud that.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, if these paintings, if the size, the borders were white, like it would be a whole completely different perspective. It would almost be. I don't even know. It would be irregular. It wouldn't make sense. Yeah, I couldn't even. Like every now and then I'll try to do it just to see how it looks, and it always just looks wrong. So yeah, then I'll just go back and paint it black. But yeah.
Great.
Question about yours.
Sure.
I really like the fact that you use both bold tones, you use muted tones, and then you use fluorescent tones. Like, how did you start using the fluorescent tones?
Well, the simple answer is I want it all.
Sure, certainly.
And so back to setting up challenges for myself. The previous body work, which Judith has modeled one, the works on panel, my color strategy was to remove some of my favorite pigments and then adding some of the ones I hate and then try to make them work. And these ones I started during the pandemic because the extra time we all have in the studio, you live in the studio.
Sure.
So I have more time to do color testing. Systematic color testing, which I didn't have the time to do before. So I actually limit myself to using just six pigments. But then the challenge I set for myself is I'm going to make a coloristically diverse body work. But I mean, knowing, if you want to make a harmonious picture, then you want to limit your colors, you want to use analogous colors, or you want to use complementary colors. I mean, there are always these rules, help you make a good painting, a harmonious painting. So I thought I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to try to throw in as many mixtures as possible in the painting and still make it all balance out. So that's the challenge I set for myself. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Are you saying that each painting has 6 tones?
6 pigments, yes.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I try to make it hard to have as many variables within that. I mean, there's a lot, right? You do the math within that, and then have the intensity and have the neutral, have you name it, and have it all work together.
Wonderful.
Like, a bunch of kids, they make them play together.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah, we discussed chess. I play chess not like I used to. As a child, I loved chess, and just kind of growing up, like lost interest in a sense. Started painting, doing other things. But just explain your interest in chess and how it relates to the work.
Chess. To me, I'll be honest, I'm a terrible chess player because I'm not an extremely patient person. And chess requires so much of mental discipline. You need to analyze and memorize and calculate and think ahead, right? When you make your first move, you already think about the mid game, and then before you get the mid game, you're thinking about your end game. Where painting, I like to borrow that intellectual rigor from chess, but I want to rebel from the fact that you want to think about the end game, because I don't want to think about my end game. I don't want to know how the painting is going to end up. All I know is I want to make a good painting. And how does this painting from the first move of the piece to the winning end game? I don't know. I think that's what keeps my interest.
Wonderful. Thank you. But my paintings are basically about the cosmos. If you look at the size of all the paintings, they're all painted black. So initially what I do is we talked about the gesso, but I take black gesso and I paint the whole canvas or the surface black. And more or less just to resemble the void, the darkness, the vacuum, whatever you want to call it. I think ultimately the vacuum is synonymous with calm and serenity and consciousness, love, joy, bliss, blah, 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 blah. But ultimately I start from the black, and I add, everything that I add on the surface is essentially being an expression from the void. And I guess all the forms are expressing the unicity of everything, just the oneness, the interconnectedness of all things. The shapes are dancing because I feel that on a atomic level, everything is vibrating. So what you see is essentially the expression of vibration, matched up against the joy of being.
Well, first of all, thank you for your comment about movement, and that's something very important. I consciously think about it, because painting, when it's finished, when it's on the wall, it's a static object. But how do we, as a creator, give it more life after it's completed? So I think about that a lot. So I think in terms of creating movement, it's through formal and visual means to do that. But on a more metaphysical level, I think of painting, we talked about it earlier, it's a juggling act. And so I feel we're all bound by gravity, and you throw yourself, your body, your mind, and the balls into the air, they're all gonna fall. So I want to catch my painting at that specific moment that you hit pause when everything falls into place. Sometimes into a perfect balance, other times it's an awkward balance, and other times it just all goes haywire. So that's sort of the message or the feeling I want to send across. So comes to material, I think Jazz and I both use acrylic. You use acrylic exclusively?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
yeah.
so for these work, I've used acrylic and other works at the gallery and flash. So with acrylic, I use it in 3 forms. One is the fluid form, which is liquid. You can get the washy, stainy sort of look. And then I use it as the heavy body, which is like a heavy paste in that form. And the third and the last one is I use it in pastel form. I add medium or molding paste and sand and these type of thing to make a grainy texture. So with these 3 options, I play with, for example, a shape maybe that you look, it's the same mixture of color. This may be a good example. Like here, that it's very similar to the stainy ground. From a distance, you would assume that is ground, that is negative space, but if you came up close, that is really a very thickly grainy painted in pastel low relief layer that is really the figure. So that's something that is important to me for this body of work.
Wonderful. Again, I always go back to, the black, the void. For me, that's, and I think everybody has an understanding that is formlessness. It is not a form, it is not impermanent. It is not come and go. The shapes and the tones are more or less representing the forms, the impermanence, everything that comes and goes. So I try to make the distinction of what is and what is temporary. When I do my black on black paintings, those are primarily expressing, the beauty of the void. The void is not something to fear. It is fearlessness. So, just, love in its purest form. I have one more.
Okay, then I'll have one more.
Okay. I like the grid work. Again, I use grids as well. My work initially was inspired by Frank Stella.
Okay, sure.
The hard edge stuff that he did. I painted hard edge for years, and then just felt an urge to kind of. It almost felt like a shell, like an egg, and I hatched from the egg, and now this is kind of the baby chicks or whatever.
That's beautiful. Well,
but I see a lot of Mondrian here. Yeah. Do you? Are you familiar with Mondrian's work? Is it inspirational to you? If so.
I am very familiar with his work, and I love the whole Bauhaus movement and every artist in it.
Sure.
Strangely, you're not the first person that asked me Mondrian's influence to me. In fact, it's almost like after fact. As I started making my recent bodies of work, a few paintings in, and I was like, a light bulb goes off. Mondrian must be lingering there somewhere. It wasn't a conscious choice before I started, but he's there somewhere. And then among, Joseph Albers, Paul Klee, and the LA abstract painter, hard edge abstract painters like John McLaughlin, and I think they're all in there somewhere. I can't really pinpoint one direct influence. It's just all jumbled up there.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sure you can relate.
Certainly.
I'm glad you spoke about the Stella influence. I can definitely see that.
Cool.
Yeah, I love his work.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, my last question for you is, you consider yourself a philosophical painter, and can you give me one specific example how philosophy interacted with your process?
Okay. I'm not laughing. I'm laughing because I've been called, a philosophical painter for years now, and I guess it. Honestly, I don't even remember where it originated. Do you know?
I found it on Judith's page, your
okay.
page.
Okay. Yeah. Amanda Manitok, she interviewed me for City Arts magazine.
So she coined the term?
Yeah, she coined the term, and it's great. It was cool. And I guess if you had to use a word to describe the work, that's what came to mind. But I think honestly, like the work is non-philosophical. Like I don't run from the label, but I think again, philosophy is it's almost like for me, this is my opinion. It's almost like a hamster on a wheel. Like it's just it's
You're chasing your own tail.
Exactly. It's exhausting. So again, with these zeros, if you get caught up in zeros as lack, then you're literally on this hamster wheel. It could be a hamster wheel, or it could be a symbol for what is. So to answer your question, I don't consider myself philosophical at all. And again, I understand the the gesture, but yeah, I don't run from it. But yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
I was bracing myself for a philosophical lecture here.
Yeah. So yeah, philosophy is not my thing. Again, we talked about the void.
Yeah.
The main thing about my work is more or less the void is not the enemy. It is not lack. Negative space is not negative.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Jazz. Thank you, Judith, for connecting us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jazz and Maggie, and thank you all for tuning in and watching. It was a fantastic conversation. Really enjoyed hearing about their works, their process, and all the deeper information that we get to hear when artists are connected. Please visit us online at www.jreinhardtgallery.com. Follow us on Instagram at jreinhardtgallery, and subscribe to our newsletter. And the exhibition is on view through December 19th, 2020, and online at jreinhardtgallery.com. Thank you again for joining us, and have a lovely evening.
Painting is like breathing. I gotta breathe, so I gotta paint.